Hello, everyone, and welcome to this last webinar of the successful series Celebrating Public Space, jointly promoted by City Space Architecture, a non-profit organization based in Italy, and the Eastern Mediterranean University Urban Research and Development Center based in Cyprus. My name is Luisa Bravo, and I'm co-moderating this webinar together with Sebnem Hoskara from Eastern Mediterranean University. Actually, this is not a webinar, this is a meeting, since we would like to have a direct interaction with all the attendees and possibilities to invite them in the conversation at the end of all presentations from all the speakers. So we will have a last part of the meeting dedicated to Q&A session so that we can accommodate all questions and requests from attendees. This meeting is recorded and will be made available later on Eastern Mediterranean University website and City Space Architecture website. So just a few words before I give the floor to my colleague and co-moderator Sebnem. When we started to discuss about this webinar series with Sebnem and Eastern Mediterranean University, we wanted to promote public space on the occasion of several important dates throughout the year 2022. So we had already other 5 webinars on different topics. And today we are discussing about World Children's Day that was celebrated on the 20th of November, so just 10 days ago. And we want to discuss how to create safe, accessible, and inclusive public spaces for children. This is a very important topic because it is part of our objective, which is related to universal design and possibility to design and implement public spaces that are in particular accessible to most vulnerable groups like children. So I'm very glad that we had this opportunity today to discuss with this amazing panel of speakers. Sebnem, you have the floor to introduce the topic of this meeting and all the speakers.
Thank you, Luisa. Thank you. Good afternoon or good morning. I don't know if anyone is joining from far. Thank you for joining our webinar, which is actually celebrating public space on the occasion of World Children's Day. Although the World Children's Day was on the 20th of November, we had to do our webinar or this event today due to so many other occasions in different places. Just a brief information about what World Children's Day is about. World Children's Day is celebrated every year on the 20th of November, to promote international togetherness and awareness among children worldwide and to improve children's welfare. Actually, the day is devoted to children since 1954. It is an important day as it was the date when the United Nations General Assembly adopted the Declaration of the Rights of the Children in 1959. And it was also in 1989 when UN General Assembly adopted Convention on the Rights of the Child. And since 1990, World Children's Day also marks the anniversary of the UN General Assembly adopted the Declaration and Convention on Children's Rights. So as you can see, United Nations has been working on the children and the children's right over the years. And we cannot deny that children are our future. So with these in mind, we have added World Children's Day into our webinar series that, as my colleague Luisa has already explained, it is the 6th webinar, and we are completing this series this year. So with these in mind, and with the belief that children are our future and they deserve healthy, safe, accessible, joyful and playful environments, we have organized this webinar around the topic. So we have actually 2 speeches, although you have seen on the poster we have 4 speakers. One of our first speaker will be Nurcan Gündüz from Eastern Mediterranean University Faculty of Law, and she will give us a perspective on children from law perspective with the children and the spaces. I will let her introduce her topic. And our second speech will be, it's a teamwork from Abdullah Gül University in Turkey. And our guest team will be dealing with sustainable development goals and educating children on the SDGs. So we will be hearing 2 different perspectives for children and for the public spaces that are designed for them. So I would like to give the word to our first speaker, Nurcan Gündüz, to give her speech. Thank you once more who are here to listen to our webinar, and thank you for our speakers as well.
Yes, Hocam, can you hear me?
Yes, you can share.
I think it's a very interesting experience for me today, because before COVID-19, it was normal to, talk to a bunch of people, or a big room of people, or amphitheater of people, face to face, and interact with them as it is. And afterwards, we got used to Zoom webinars and other facilities like that. And I think for 6 months, I didn't do something like this. So I have the anxiety of if you can hear me, or if you can see me, and etc. Yes, as Sebnem Hoca said, I'm going to talk about something closely related with law today. Let me share my screen with you. So, yes, I think I'm the only lawyer here. So it's a bit hard to tell that I'm going to talk about something to celebrate, actually. But whether we like it or not, we have to talk about the crime and criminal behavior related with children, whether they got into the process as offender or suspect or the victim. So I decided to talk about public space allocated to children in law enforcement system, as I'm a criminal lawyer myself. So I'm trying to introduce you about the criminal justice system, and afterwards the execution of the punishments, if you like, but sanctions is the correct word when it is children you are talking about, in order to share my thoughts about designing places regarding the the identity of the children before all else. Yeah, there are two possibilities actually, if they're not witnesses, and generally layperson who are not related with law confused about this. One is the context of doli in capax. When we are talking about doli in capax and capacity of committing a crime, if the child is the defender, if the child is, if the child commits a crime or has a behavior which is considered as a crime in legal system which he or she is living in. So we are trying to create an environment for him or her to get rid of this behavior in the future, basically. Age of consent, on the other hand, is not the child's capacity of committing a crime or not. It is when, if he or she is the victim of a crime. And for example, for sex offenses, you must have seen them on newspapers and media. For example, child abuse or sexual abuse of a child. This is about the age of the victim, not the age of the offender. Today, I'm going to talk about the offender children and their places instead of the age of consent and, you know, the victim children. But here, I would like to add that, although we are not going to talk about them today, when the child is victim, one should consider the design of the criminal process and afterwards accordingly. You know, they are fragile, whether they're the offender or whether they are the victim of a crime. So if you want to avoid the secondary, you know, secondary problems about the criminal behavior done to them, you have to consider this. For example, they do not design places like police stations and making the victim explain all the things again and again and again. But instead of this, you have a social worker, you have a, you know, specialist psychologist, and you explain the issue with them. They record the tape and watch the video later on whenever it is needed. So the child is not traumatized again and again. So although if the child is victim, we are not going to talk about this, but you should keep in mind that the public places for them is also different from the adults. Yeah. Yeah, when the child is the offender, we have some issues about the age of the child. Criminal responsibility is oftenly confused with the, you know, eligibility of being criminally punishable, if you like. Is not the same thing as being an adult in civil law means, or for example, you don't need to be 18 in order to be punished with criminal law sanctions. In Turkey, it is from 12 years old. As you can see here, from 12 years old, you can be punished, not into a prison, but you can be punished. By 12 years and afterwards, Turkish legislature says, okay, you are eligible to commit a crime. You know what you're doing, and if you do that, I will consider your age and consider your situation and decide about the sanction and act accordingly. This is nearly the same in the many contemporary countries and legal systems like that, because the United Nations Convention for Children's Rights is accept children as the people below the age of 18. In Northern Cyprus, it is a bit confusing, on the other hand, because although we accepted that convention as law of Northern Cyprus, Dolly in Capax, in the capability of committing a crime, the year or the age in which the legislator tells you that, okay, you're capable of committing a crime, it's 11. But afterwards, when we try to understand who is child, who is young offender, and who is adult offender, it is confusing. There are some different numbers in some different legislation, 14, 16, 18. They need to be updated as soon as possible. What about the places? If there is a situation and we have a suspect who is below 18, police stations, detention facilities, if we are not, we cannot understand if he or she is guilty or not in the first minute. So we have to, do some criminal process in order to understand that. So in many cases, we have to use the detention facilities for adults or for children. It doesn't matter how we are going to design them. We have courthouses, the buildings which are allocated for courtrooms and other stuff related with this issue. Correction houses for children and prisons, not in adults' prisons, at least today, but we have children in prisons in many places of the contemporary world. As you can see here, also I'd like to say that there is a convention again, or there's a proceeding, there's a recommendation. The European Union have, papers about it. The United Nations have papers about it. If a child is a suspect, or the thing is more serious, and they, file a case against him or her, and he or she is accused now. As you can see there, the one here, the room, interrogation room, is a fictional place from a movie. And this one is a place in Illinois, the United States, a new police station design. In police stations and other places like prisons and other facilities regarding to this issue, the governments have the tendency to keep all the things simple. All the things are simple because they are dealing with something unwanted, actually. No one wants a criminal behavior in their, ruining their public order. So because of this way of thinking, at the end of the day, the government and the staff have the feeling like if we have, or if we provide a little bit of comfort to those people who are under the suspect of committing a crime, or we prove that he or she committed a crime, it will look like we approve what they're doing, or we are okay with it, but we are not. So we should make them suffer in order to not to seem like supporting this. At the end of the day, until it's not a human rights violation, for example, if the place is like this room on the left, but there's no torture, no pressure, nothing wrong with it, it's fine. But generally, it comes with the other consequences. So these places, since they're not designed for the children, are not suitable for children. I'm not going to, act like an architect in your presence, but as you may understand, we have to keep in mind that these places, although the police station in Illinois looks like a very new and very contemporary movie place, it's a police station at the end of the day, and it's not suitable for children. And what about courthouses and courtrooms? They had a decision. The U.S. Supreme Court had the decision of this protection of children's rights in criminal justice in 1967. What happened until then? One cannot, say that we solved all the problems, but this is why this is a landmark case and why I'm using it here, because when it comes to children, everyone thinks that it's a very minor group of delinquents, and at the end of the day, their rights are human rights, and it's okay. We don't need extra care to show them. No, it's not like that. We have to show extra care and protect their rights, as we protect adults' rights. This here, it shows how a courtroom actually looks like. This one, the white one, from Japan. This is a public prosecutor who is a public authority actually, and accuses the person. And here the judges and defendant, and behind the lawyer. This is from the US, different than the Japanese version. They have jury box, and I would like you to think about the place of the defendant and the place of the attorney who presents the defendant. In normal cases, not a children's issue, sorry. Here, you are looking to a criminal court room in Turkey. Here, you can see the white chairs are for defendants, and here for the lawyer, and the public prosecutor is just right near the judges on the bench. This is ridiculous in a psychological way for even an adult person. Imagine you are charged with a crime. Someone claims that you are guilty. You are in a box, actually, and you are not near your lawyer. You cannot, contact with him during the case. And suddenly, you see that the guy who is, pressing charge against you, a public officer, is sitting next to the judges. And they're very, very, you're under the ground, and they're very escalated against you. And they sit opposite, and they're together. And you're alone, even without your lawyer. Can you imagine the psychological situation that would create in a child's mind who is, maybe committed a crime or not? It doesn't matter. You can feel the pressure. Everyone can feel the pressure, even if it's a civil case. For example, if you have the opportunity, if you like, to have to see a civil case or criminal case in North Cyprus, it is like the Japanese version, and thanks to God, it is not like that. It's very tense and not suitable for children, obviously. Here in Turkey, they had a very good move last year. Turkish first children justice center in Erzurum. As you may see, you can see all the benches are in the same level in the room, and they are using the same clothing, not the gowns that we see in the movies, just a simple jacket or something like that, and they can talk to children without being escalated from him or her. They don't, put this pressure on them in order to do it. Eliminates all the possible disadvantages of disclosure of the case or the identity of the child, and other disadvantages and eliminates all the disadvantages that I'm talking about regarding the normal courtrooms design. Also, complete isolation from adults' public places. If you take a child, as in Northern Cyprus, if you take a child to courthouse and you don't have a courthouse for them actually, or this kind of center, they interact with criminal adult people. You cannot stop it from being. You cannot, stop it, and it will cause many different problems. This is from 2019 from United States. They have different opportunities for children. Why did I took this pie chart to show you? They have detention centers. They have long-time security facilities. Adult prisons and jails also have children, unfortunately, in the US. Residential treatment and group homes, they have different opportunities. In Turkey, there are three possible places. One is for correction houses. These photos from Istanbul Correction House. They have four, I think, Istanbul, Urla, Diyarbakır, and Ankara. They work very hard. They work hard, and the Minister of Justice website is very updated and helpful, actually. If you're interested in, you can Google it and you can see how they are trying to figure this out. But in normal way, in Turkey, they keep these children in three different places. One is correction houses. One is prisons and jails for people, actually adult people, and prisons and jails for children and young people. In summary, I don't want you to be bored with low things, but the most important thing is, in order to avoid children to offend again, and we should keep in mind that the law enforcement system is not only about punishing criminals. We can punish criminals, but also we are trying to protect the society from future crime, future criminal behavior of this child that we are talking about, or the other children or other people. So also we are trying to protect the criminal children's future. In order to do so, we have to keep in mind that we have to design the public places that we use for this process according to the needs of children, and definitely isolate them from adults' places in every single step of the process. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation.
Thank you, Nurcan. Thank you. Of course, it is interesting to hear such a presentation under the topic of public spaces, considering law and criminology maybe, because this is something that we don't think too much as being out of law as planners, designers, but there is also other realities of the world, and thinking about the courthouses as, or the courtrooms, let's say, as public spaces, and then seeing them for the sake of children and how they would feel, how these should be designed, is an interesting approach, and it's interesting for me, at least, because I never thought about it personally. I don't know about the other audience. Of course, when we say public spaces are for all, as this is what we always say, they are inclusive, but obviously the public space that you have described here is not for all. Yes, it may be for adults, it may be for all, but you are arguing that it should be specific for children only. So this is a different discussion. I just needed to make a comment before we move to our next speakers, but I'm sure we will have some extra commentary after the presentations. Thank you very much, Nurcan.
Thank you, Hocam.
And I would now like to give the word to our presenters from Abdullah Gül University, Burak Asil İskender, Sinan Akyüz, and sorry, I forgot our third speaker, Sümeyya Hoca. They will be presenting us about their work on children and SDGs.
Okay, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it will be. Hello from a public space from Abdullah Hülgü University. Hopefully, we would like to add something about this valuable presentation. Nurcan Hocam, thank you very much. We are thinking about in a different perspective. It really helps me to understand the problems on the children's and their abilities much more. Let me share the screen. Hopefully you will all see the presentation now. Okay, so we are talking about this extracurricular activity today because, as you know, education is a kind of a large topic, but especially for the extracurricular activities or informal or non-formal activities are the most hot topics nowadays, especially how to enlarge this training environment or learning environment, children in particular. So we would like to merge some information or some intention, not only for the non or informal education, but also education for sustainable development and this informal and non-formal education. This is important because, you know, children are the future of our world. So they will construct, they will do their profession in the future, and they will survive everything again and again. And we have a responsibility for them to focus on the earth and all of the facilities. So this sustainable development issue is really important about the future generation, and we have to create some awareness and to enlarge their intentions on this idea. So, you know, education is a kind of and it's not a tool, it's the main aim in our professions to focus on about the future perspective. But when we talk about the education, actually education or the intention on global issues, these SDGs, education or giving the quality education is a kind of a tool to merge all of these UN topics. In this world, we are working in this intention. We are working in several projects in AGU, and we are focusing on the sustainable development goals. We have a very exciting curriculum in our university with Global Challenge Courses umbrella, and our students have some kind of studies on these topics, focusing on different SDG works, but we also try to enlarge this intention with the students, especially in these elementary schools or the mid-elementary schools, because, you know, they are the ones of our future. And especially Sümeyra has a kind of intention on this area, and we are working mostly with before Sümeyra, we are mostly working with the university students, but she has a special intention, especially for the elementary students. And we extend our intention on this area, and they invite the students in our campus, and they work with this intention together. And we would like to organize some workshops in our university with these kids, and extend this formal education system, do some kind of workshops, and organize some kind of events with them, focusing on this perspective. Would you like to add something, Sinan?
Yes, Hocam. Thank you. In our university curriculum, as Burak Hoca said, we had a proper SDG teaching courses for all students, for all levels of students from every department. We were quite good at that in terms of teaching university students. But with Sümeyra's help and her experience, we had the opportunity to expand that to pretty much all level of children, from primary school to high school students. And she already had some books about that, teaching SDGs to children. And we use, based on these books, we organize workshops, we develop workshops. With the help of the Ministry of Education's local branch, we had different partnership in order to realize these workshops. One of them is the Ministry of Education. And with this partnership, we could bring the students here, and we implemented in total 15 different workshops. And we noticed that they didn't have any knowledge actually about SDGs. They have some concepts such as climate change or recycling. They have some concepts in the formal education system from primary school to high school, but they don't have actually any topics in the in this formal curriculum activities, in the formal curriculum of Turkey about whole SDGs.
So that's the reason actually we get together and focus on this intention, because you know if we are waiting some students in the universities focusing on this kind of works, so we have to enlarge this intention from the starting point, from the elementary school. So what we do, or what we did in these workshops, this is our curriculum workshop design. So we are trying to organize some to explain them, or some initiatives, or starting something on their minds with games, and with some kind of group workings, and creating a kind of a learning environment or surging environment about our future. And this kind of activities could be a kind of they are triggering something to think about their future or today. When after the workshops, we are getting contact with the kids and trying to understand their lifestyle, how their lifestyle changed. What we understand, they have been much more intentions on their surroundings. They are trying to understand the problems, and they're trying to force themselves to find some kind of solutions on them. This is really important for us. And when we start these activities several years ago, we have some students from high schools when we give this kind of activities, but the main intention on this kids environment, the elementary school organization, is a bit new to all of us. It is a kind of a 2-year experience now. Hopefully there will be students of all of us in the near future, and we will much more focus and work with them about these problems. And we have some kind of learning outcomes. This is important, you know. If we don't have any kind of outcomes, it's hard to navigate or focus on something. We are trying to realize them to daily consumption habits, and or recognize some sustainable practices, and especially on production and consumption. And this is important, you know. It's not enough to focus on the consumption issue. You have to recognize some ideas, especially for the production also, and organize some kind of teamworks and so on. Sinan?
For each SDG, we organize different workshops. Usually, the workshop consists of several stages. The first stage is usually what was
This icebreaker.
usually it starts with the icebreakers, because it's an extracurricular activity. It's not like a formal lecture. It starts with the icebreaker. Later, we will
Presentation about SDGs.
a presentation about the basic SDG, about whatever the topic of today. For example, in this example, it is SDG 12, which is responsible production and consumption. And we implement that with the primary school children. Yeah, it was with the primary school children. And the learning outcomes and the areas developments here with Sümeyra Hoca's knowledge, we designed that in relation to the official curriculum of Turkey, but we expand that. So the learning outcome here are actually the outcomes of UN's intention in the UN's education book, in the UN's education about SDGs. They want these outcomes to realize, but we didn't just put that. Sümeyra Hoca very developed them and integrated that to Turkish education system outcomes.
So this is important because, you know, we are the ones working with the university students, higher education students, and mostly we really know how to give some education for them. But it's really new to us to focus on for the kids. They have very different worlds, and they are trying to understand something in a different perspective. So we have to. We are trying to understand their understandings, and they're trying to develop some words. Let's focus on some implementations of the workshop. There are some levels. This is a kind of an example for the process. As my colleagues explained, we are trying to focus on some ice-breaking activities, and then start to focus on questioning about the main problem, and creating a kind of a workshop on thinking how to develop a better feature. There are some examples, similar examples. I'm trying to give some examples from the activities. This is one of the posters of the activity, which was done, as I remember, at September, exactly two months ago. And we focus on this consumption issue and give some, a thinking environment with them. And maybe we give some examples, Sinan, could you get detailed?
Based on their development stages, we use different activities. Here we use painting, poetry, poster design, and logo design all together. Basically, we are trying to we are trying to use different methods, combine of methods actually, which suits their psychological and psychological development level, and trying to use as much as different education tools. Here, for example, it was from okay hocam geçebiliriz.
Brainstorming.
It was a brainstorming activity here.
Or we are trying to organize some models with them. So this is an activity from thinking the city, the future of the city, how to organize this future organization.
And here they are trying to design their imaginary city. And some, as urban planner, I can say they were quite creative about that, and they solved the different functions very good. Like, it was really quite surprising.
Or here also we are organizing some games with them, some child games, about some, I don't know, we organize some games with balls or ropes. And in this activity, and we are trying to extend their ideas, and they try to do something more about them. And this is another activity. So I don't know. I'm trying to explain in a quick way. If you ask some more, we do our best to explain some more on this one. This is an SDG workshop for the sustainable cities, and you will see the environment. There's lots of tools on the table, which are focusing on this poster organization, making models, and they coloring, and they're trying to organize some brainstorming, and they're trying to organize some thinking on the future environment. Mostly at the end of the activities, we get together and they talk with them, and try to organize some collaborative environment. We also invite some vulnerable groups, not only for the groups from the, primary or elementary schools, the state, private or public schools, we are trying to get the vulnerable kids in the system to understand their problems and to navigate their ideas, and they focus on the creating a better future. As a conclusion, so this is a kind of a hands-on experience to all of us. We are trying to do something, but we are learning from what we are doing. So Sümeyra is a kind of a elementary school training background. We are from the university environment. The pedagogy is a bit different, not a bit, it's really very different comparing with the university students and the children in the elementary or primary schools. What the main idea is, if you organize a kind of an intention, a kind of an interest on the idea, so the product is, or the final version is a bit similar. The learning outcomes are much more focusing on rising the harmony of the nature and creating the extracurricular potential on the environment. So we are trying to explain this one in an academic way. We work, this is, and I'm just explaining this in a hands-on experience, but we also work with this conceptual background and trying to understand how we organize or navigate this process. Thank you for listening. Sinan, would you like to say something more?
Yeah, actually, after 15 workshops with children, we noticed that our impact is still limited. So nowadays we start to give these training modules to teachers in Turkey. We already had one with teacher, actually two with teachers, and now we have new funding applications in order to expand that and to work with more teachers.
So this is a bit brand new something for us. If we, this is a little limited with the kids in our campus, but if we train the teachers much more, which will be kind of no expansion on the area. Okay, this is all for us, Sebnem Hocam or Luisa.
Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing your work with us. I also have a quick comment on your presentation before we move to the questions and maybe discussions. Of course, the relationship between children and sustainable development goals and the relationship between children and public spaces, they have got both very interesting and very important place in planning, in urban design, and in architecture at the same time. Considering the public spaces and how children are experiencing them is related to safety, to proximity and accessibility, cleanness, stability, play, all kinds of issues on one side. And on the other side, we really need to think of and understand the relationship of the sustainable development goals and the children, because if you consider the SDGs and children relations, you can consider poverty of children, you can consider the health issues, which is Sustainable Development Goal 3, education, like you are dealing, gender equality and children, climate change, violence against children. So all different perspectives of SDGs are one way or the other affecting children. What is missing from my knowledge is, although SDG 11 is related with sustainable cities and communities, interestingly, children are not mentioned there, although public spaces are. So how to bring these three together is actually it is somehow in the core of our discussions in this event, and we have seen one perspective from SDGs perspective from you, from the law and law perspective from Nurcan Hoca. So we can open up the discussions and questions.
May I add something?
How to discuss these. Educating SDGs is another core. So
Yes,
for example,
yes.
you could have given this talk on an education session as well, but we
Yes.
prefer that you are in the public space session. So how can we all make comments on this? Maybe if our speakers have got, our audience have got any questions, comments, or Luisa, you want to add something before we open up the discussion?
Yes. I would like to add something, a question actually for this second presentation. In the conclusion, you mentioned about social and environmental responsibility that you try to achieve through this course for children. Did you implement any monitoring strategy to understand the level of awareness that this course is able to deliver for children?
Yes.
And yeah, because I mean, anytime when we teach, we try to understand, what contents the teaching activity was able to reach the student, and what kind of what level of maturity in terms of understanding contents, discussing about complexity of the content. I understand this is very complex with children, but do you have any feedback?
Yes, we have. Before the event, our campus is also a kind of a very exciting environment. We are trying to organize an open campus in the city. So this is also a kind of a process to invite children to our campus to experience this, plain and their accessible environment with to understanding this sustainable issues. It's not a kind of a knowledge-based something, it's also a kind of activity-based production. And with this one, we make some kind of questionnaires in the beginning and at the end to understand what they reach. But in time, we also get in contact with them to follow their the lifestyle change. We are monitoring the contact with their teachers and monitoring their ability change. What we learn, they really have affected our training, and they are trying to be much more precise about their consumption, and they create some kind of awareness about the city and their environment. Especially, this is really important because before they get in the campus, they have very limited information about the city or urban life. But after this experience, they are collecting some images or sharing some kind of ideas about their urban life. They are complaining about something to their teachers, which is really nice. And because, when they complain something about their lifestyle or urban accessibility, they are starting to think about and they will do something hopefully they will do something about the future. But we learn more. Most of them would like to be an architect. This is also very exciting for us. This is not a kind of our expect or a kind of we don't intend to be transfer that idea according to profession, but they really attracted about the environment and the process, and we are in contact. I don't know, I'm trying to answer your question and add something more. Hopefully it will enough for you.
Yes, it's fine. Thank you. So I don't know if there are questions from the audience. You can send a question in the chat, or you can open your camera and and your microphone and just ask.
They are now shocked with all the different perspectives of how to relate.
low to, you know, sustainable development goals with the cities and the consumption production. So,
Yeah,
okay, this is a kind of a, go on, hocam.
When you Google the children and SDGs and children and public spaces, you really get different perspectives, but at the same time some similar topics. Like the SDGs are also related with the children's right, and I have read a critic that although there are issues within the Sustainable Development Goals related to SDGs, they are not specifically designed for children. So that is a kind of lacking perspective, yes, or lacking point of the Sustainable Development Goals, because they don't directly consider children, although they try to be inclusive. So we can also criticize that also. And from the public space perspective, we always say that if you design the public spaces for children and for women and for vulnerable, that means they are designed also for everybody. So yeah, I think this is also something to be considered in placemaking, or in yes, public space design, or in city design, basically designing cities and public spaces for children, so that they are safe, they're accessible, they are playful, aesthetic.
Yeah, actually, not only the in designing process, but generally in the public policy producing process is lack of children. And the UN is quite aware of that, at least in several reports, because we did a project about children perspective in design, especially in urban design. And during that period, I have read several reports, and they have some interesting examples. For example, in UK, in London, a part of a socio-economically backward parts of London, they did a design in the public parks. And what they did is, usually in the previous period, the parks were covered with cement or something, hard material, and they changed it with grass. And after a period of time, they did a questionnaire with children who use that park, and the children want the concrete hard cover back, because they say if it is grass, we cannot see the needles or broken glasses in the grass, and we usually get hurt. And there are some other examples of in Bangladesh, for example, the UNDP and the Bangladesh government, they did a joint project about children participation to the workforce in early ages. And because they were quite focused in some certain sectors, usually dangerous sectors, and they try to ban it to hire children. And they implemented this policy change. They quite strictly ban children to enroll these sectors. But what happened is, usually children had to go to even worse sectors, because that sector was provided certain security for most of the children. When they banned to work for children in that sectors, actually the result was quite negative than their intention. So therefore, we really have to take children's voice in pretty much every public policy design as an input.
So we are responsible for all of these stages on the design into urban facilities. You know, mostly the professions are thinking about the mature ones, but we have to think about what the kind of a children need, or we have to focus on their perspective also. what I really excited from Nurcan Hoca's presentation about the courtyards, they are for the elderly people. But what about the kids? When there are some kind of problems, they have to visit or they have to be there. So we have to think about how they perceive that environment, or what kind of perceptions has to be organized according to their minds, because they are the future of us. They are the future of the earth, and we have to organize some kind of some better environment for them to think and they participate about their future. We are designing or we are doing something for them, but excluding them. This is the main problem, in my opinion. We have to invite children to all of the facilities, in my opinion.
May I add something?
Sure.
As I was talking about the idea of, providing something bad, or they were trying to, design somewhere not comfortable for the offenders. For all prisons, it's the same. They have the idea of the most luxurious thing that they will have is the lowest standard of the free man outside. But as Burak Hoca was talking, it came in mind that in Turkey and in many countries, unfortunately, there are children in prisons who are not actually criminals, or even they are not, capable of committing a crime when you consider they're 6 years old, 7 years old, or something like that. Mothers are in prison and no one to take care of them. So these children are grown up, and many of them born in the prison, live in the prison until 8 years old. There was a project in Turkey. It is called İçeride Çocuk Var. There's a child inside, and it was a very it had a huge impact. And in North Cyprus here, this is another thing that came into my mind while Sebnem Hoca was talking about including and excluding people or adults in children's places. As if you are, if you are not quick, and if you don't see the necessary things for the people, all people actually, and like in Northern Cyprus, you will not be able to change the law accordingly of the needs of the contemporary world. Last week or before that, it's not 1 month ago. I don't know if Sebnem Hoca saw that on the news. There was a 13-year-old refugee guy, 13-year-old child. He was like no father, no mother, no parents, nothing. He was a refugee guy. He was put into the prison of adult people in order to wait for him to deport. So you have to be quick while you decide what you need and change your legislation. I think it's very important.
Hocam, you are really right, especially that vulnerable kids. They are really in stuck of something. So we have a kind of an ability to reach someone, some kind of children in the schools. Well, they are not mostly in a well environment. We have to, enrich or enhance their spatial perception. But when we are talking about this vulnerable groups or vulnerable children, they are really in a bad situation. So we have to think, and we have to create some kind of projects or some kind of activities to give them a kind of a better living environment. This is the one of the I don't know, hottest topics in our world nowadays. It's not the first, it will be in Turkey or North Cyprus. I think it's really similar in Italy or in America. This is the main issue of our era, in my opinion. The kids are in danger and the kids needs help, and they have to be in safe in public environment.
I think all these emphasizes and shows the importance of our professions of planning, urban design, architecture, or design related disciplines, which all deal with public spaces, and the interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary characteristics of all these disciplines. Because imagine that we are talking about law at one side, and then we're talking about social issues and psychological perspectives. So we cannot just think of architecture, planning, urban design, our professions, design-related professions, let's say, without considering the world issues. And this is why we should be sitting around the table, not only like pure professions, like only architects, only planners, only lawyers, but we should be working together from all. And for example, it is the same with health and design, health and planning. Now we have to sit and talk and design together with the doctors maybe at the same time. So the world is changing very fast, and we all have a role in this changing world, and we should be contributing positively from different perspectives, from our own professional and personal and human perspective. And this also shows the human aspect of our professions as well.
Yes.
So we have got a huge responsibility. Now, sometimes, yeah, yes, exactly. I sometimes feel very stressed when I'm talking about all these issues with my students, because it seems that you have got a huge responsibility in the future of the professionals, and this is not a one man's or one person's job. This is really difficult, but this is how the world is going. So before educating architects, planners, we should really be educating human beings in the right way. I think this is all I can get from
Yeah, you're right.
today's presentation.
Educating a profession is really easy, Hocam. So we can easily give the precise something, how to do their professional work. But the critical thing, we have to use the education tool as a kind of being a, right human being at first. We have to get the responsibility to each of the humanity, and think about their place where they stand still, or where they feed their body. So earth is important. There's no earth, there's no profession. First of all, we have to focus on this earth issue, the global issues, and to find a way to thinking about our future today and the future.
Yes, in fact, if I can add something to this very interesting conversation, I think we should stress the need for cooperation, and in fact, the SDG 17 partnerships for the goal. I think we do not understand how important this is for all the other SDGs. Since I've been listening to so many presentations and also commitments, and what it is the most recurrent word that I hear from all these commitments is together. The idea that we can achieve SDGs only if we work together, and togetherness is also part of our common future as human beings on the planet. If we want to continue to live together and to share and prosper together. So I think it is very important that we also stress what it is needed in terms of cooperation. This is also why we at City Space Architecture started a cooperation with the Eastern Mediterranean University, because you need to see the world from different perspectives, talk with so many people, embrace different concepts, and sometimes also disagree or try to solve some misunderstandings. We faced some of these misunderstandings also during meetings and organization of activities, but it's fine. I mean, it's what we need to progress as human beings. And so it is very important also today that we close this series of meetings and events by talking about the children, because as you all said, they are our future. And so we need to create better conditions for children to also understand the complexity and difficulties they will have to face in their own future as human beings primarily, and then potentially also as architects, designers, or experts and specialists that will have the commitment to take care of our world and our planet. So if there are some other comments, otherwise I think we can close the meeting.
I don't see any comments. Sinan Hoca has shared a file in the chat box. That is a that's a PDF file on promoting children's participation in democratic decision making. So that can be a good output for today's from today's discussions as well, for anyone who is interested. You can download it, I think, from the chat box. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I already downloaded it.
Any other comments from our speakers? Well, thank you very much for your very valuable presentations to our event. I think it's also important that we end up with a presentation with which is related with sustainable development goals, because one of the main objectives of these webinar series, although we were focusing on public spaces in general or in specific, promoting SDGs was another objective, and in every webinar we have mentioned one or two of them. So this was also a good ending for us. So thank you for sharing your work with us, and thank you all for joining who are with us with your cameras closed. It's okay.
Thank you, Hocam, for inviting us. It's really nice evening to all of us, I think.
Okay, well, have a good evening. Any last words, Luisa?
Yes. Well, we hope we can continue this cooperation also in regard of sharing knowledge, best practices, opportunities to learn from others, and to progress also with our work and activities, since being a scholar, academic scholars and educators means that you need to open your perspective and to continue to learn, to study. And so I think this webinar series was also a very nice opportunity to see and learn from others. And I hope that those who attended also learned and appreciated the effort of inviting and discussing with so many amazing speakers. So thank you to the speakers who attended today. And we will publish this meeting that has been recorded on the website of Eastern Mediterranean University and City Space Architecture, so that we can reach a much larger audience. So thank you again.
Thank
And
you.
goodbye.
Evening and goodbye.